land, it's your land.
President Trump are clashing in Berkeley, California. This video.
This land is my land.
From
California.
This great state of California, one of the most progressive states in America, is on board the political revolution. Thank you.
And welcome everyone to Progressive California. I am Laura Livengood, your host this week, and we are very excited about our topic that we are going to be discussing. We are in the wake of the issues around net neutrality. We're going to be talking about a municipal internet. Why is it's important? Why organizations and communities should be fighting for it. And a couple of months ago, Joseph did a segment with Ron Placone about this topic, about his presentation at the Pasadena City Council meeting. So he's going to be joining us in a moment to talk more about that. But first, I want to introduce Joseph, co-host and news editor, who will be doing a wonderful rant later about a topic you can probably guess on. He's going to talk a little bit about the rules of engagement for our broadcast. Joseph?
Yes, this is an engagement broadcast, which means that our awesome viewers can actually ask questions in the live chat. I'll be the chat moderator during Laura's interview with Ron today. So if you want me to see your question, make sure to tag the word question or tag me in as @JosephSakata in the chat. And when during the Q&A, we will be asking those questions to Ron.
Thank you so much. And we look forward with bated breath to your rant later on.
Yes.
I've had a preview, guys. It's really good. Anyway, so without further ado, I would like to bring on our guest, Ron Placone. Ron is a comedian. You may know him well from his role as a sidekick and producer on the Dore Show. He's off to the side there, and he's often a writer for the show as well. He also has his own show, host of Get Your News On with Ron. But one of his pet projects, because he lives in LA, is getting a municipal internet on to the city council agenda in Pasadena. And to that end, he, actually, you know what? I would like him to come on. Welcome, Ron, to our show.
Hello.
Mm-hmm. Glad to have you here. So
Thanks for having me.
For those of us who may be a little bit new to this topic, tell us, what is municipal internet? Why is it important? And why should we want it?
Okay, well, we'll talk about net neutrality too. So
yes, exactly.
Net neutrality is what assures a free and open internet, meaning that there are no fast lanes and slow lanes via the net. No outlet can pay for prioritization, i.e. CNN.com doesn't load any faster than the newscast we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. That's what net neutrality is. We've had assumed net neutrality rules since the advent of the internet. Since the internet's been around, since we've known it, we've had assumed net neutrality rules. The ISPs and the cable companies have challenged this many times over the years, and in 2014, 2015, they were pretty much successful. They won a court battle basically saying they didn't need to uphold net neutrality laws, but the courts told the FCC, if you designate the internet a Title II, Title II designation means that it is kind of an essential utility, kind of like running water is the analogy I like to use, or applying it to a telecom service. It's kind of like the telephone. If I call Joe right now, or I call you, or I call the White House, it's all treated the exact same. I'm just making a phone call. It doesn't matter who I'm calling. That's Title II designation. So they told the FCC, if you designate the internet a Title II, then you can uphold net neutrality. And Tom Wheeler of the FCC did not want to do this. He was a cable lobby insider most of his career. He didn't want to do this. He just kind of wanted to punt this. But the people demanded it. And there were so many comments that in a dose of beautiful irony, they crashed the FCC's website. So at the 11th hour, the Obama administration and Tom Wheeler did the right thing, and we got net neutrality laws. Now, with this new head of the FCC, Ajit Pai, he decided to repeal net neutrality. It was one of the first things he wanted to do. And he was able to do it. Right now, it is being challenged in court. There's also states proposing their own net neutrality laws. And people are also pushing for a Congressional Review Act, which means Congress can overturn what the FCC did. Now, all of these efforts are good. I am in support of all of them because I think net neutrality is such a serious issue that we need to throw everything we have into this. Now, what would losing net neutrality create? Losing net neutrality could create a landscape where the internet is a lot like cable television 2.0, where it's more money to access certain websites, where those without money and power don't get their traffic moving as fast. A stream like this, for example, would load really slow, while Fox News would load fast or something like that. That's what net neutrality, losing it, could mean. And this is not some kind of like, oh, the sky is falling. This is a very real thing that could happen.
Right.
Similar to the Telecommunications Act of '96, how that homogenized radio,
Right.
how cable television, because television is designated different than a Title II, cable packages get smaller and smaller every year and get more and more pricey every year. They can do the exact same thing to the internet. It's totally possible because we already handed over our infrastructure to a handful of corporations. Now, what we can do is build our own infrastructure and or take it back. This is where municipal internet comes in. Policy can help us. State laws are a good thing. However, this fight's going to just keep going on and on and on. And what municipal internet would do is municipal internet would pretty much just end the fight once and for all, because it would really just take the internet and put it in the public hands. What municipal internet would be is that you would get your internet the same way you kind of get your garbage collected, or the same way you get the water flowing to your house. You would get it via your community. Other countries do it this way. They enjoy better internet than we do at a more reasonable price, and they laugh at us. Other countries that have duplicated our model, they also have shitty internet like we do. Am I allowed to cuss here? Is that okay?
Yes,
What I just said?
absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Please do.
Australia followed our lead, and they don't have good internet because of it. Other places in the United States have done this. Chattanooga, Tennessee, for instance. They've been ahead of the curve. They've had municipal internet since about 2014. They enjoy the best internet in the country at a price that is lower than what most people pay for their internet. Same with Sandy, Oregon. They did something similar. And now other cities in the U.S. are following suit. Something happened in Longmont, Colorado. Fort Collins is working on something. I think Colorado Springs might be on the brink of something as well. Don't quote me on that one, though. But, for whatever reason, Colorado is really on the pulse of this one, which I love Colorado. But for whatever reason, they're really standing out. And there have been some states that have, had net neutrality laws. We're pushing something here in California. Montana has something that passed. I believe Vermont has something. So there's a lot of we're fighting back is the big point. But what I'm trying to do in my community, and what anybody can do in their community, is really push for it to happen in their community. So what I did, I showed up to City Hall. I did use the resources at the Jimmy Dore Show because we announced it. We announced that it was happening. And some people showed up, and they had statements prepared. So we kind of, not ambushed City Hall, but we kind of had a big showing. We had a nice little cluster of people. And Jimmy and Steph came too, which was really cool of them. They were there, just to show support and stuff. Because, it's kind of really important. I mean, we live in the community. We rely on very high-speed internet to do what we do. We need it to do our work. So, and there's a lot of other people in Pasadena that are in the same boat. I mean, Pasadena is a community that has a lot of colleges. They have JPL. They have, just a lot of tech industry and a lot of people in show business. I mean, it's LA pretty much. It's LA adjacent. So, it's a community that would really benefit from it. And that's the case that I made because, sometimes you have to speak the language. And, I'm willing to speak the language because that's how important this issue is. So, I said, look, this is a win-win. The community wins. It makes the community look great. The residents win. The industry here wins. Everybody wins. There's no losers in this scenario, except for the ISPs that are just ripping us all off anyway.
Right.
So let's tell them to go packing. Why not?
We've actually got a video of your talk to the city council. Do we have that ready to show, John?
Yeah, let's roll it. Ron Placone, followed by Jeffrey Jost, followed by Melissa, followed by Robert Ellison.
Good evening. My name is Ron Placone. I'm a resident here in Pasadena. I work here and I vote here. I'm here to discuss the need for municipal internet in Pasadena, why it's essential now, and how it will benefit our community. Recently, the FCC repealed net neutrality. Despite not being cemented until 2015, rules of net neutrality were assumed since the advent of the internet as we know it. Without net neutrality, cable companies will now be allowed to create fast lanes and slow lanes for access, throttle different content depending on the power of its creator, and essentially turn the internet into cable television 2.0. Municipal internet ends this struggle once and for all, putting infrastructure in the hands of the public and out of the hands of corporate interests. I myself am an online content creator. I rely on a free and open internet for my livelihood. Given the wealth of creatives, college campuses, and tech industry here in Pasadena, I know that I am not alone. Other communities that have already made this investment, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Sandy, Oregon, Longmont, Colorado, they have the best internet in the country at a price that is lower than what most people pay for their internet. More importantly, net neutrality and municipal internet is essential for the United States, and we can do our part by building our own right here in our own community. The time is now. Thank you for your time, and for everybody that took the time to join me today, howdy, howdy.
Jeff.
Well
Yeah,
done.
Well, that guy was a nerd, but moving on. So that was what I did. I showed up and other people showed up and they had prepared statements. And you guys mentioned, I mentioned to Joe, Andy Wilson was one of the council members that liked what I had to say. A couple did. He was the one that, really liked what I had to say. So I took down his name. I went on the website, found his email, and emailed him. And he looped me in with everybody else that was important to the conversation. And I basically said, when are we getting this on an agenda? And unfortunately, I don't have a concrete answer yet. I emailed them this week again, and they said it should be on an agenda by either the end of this month or May, beginning of May, and they should have a solid date for me soon. Mm-hmm. So I'm still waiting on that one. But I have been in contact, and I'm pretty confident it's going to get there. And once it gets there, I have another job, and that job is to show up again to bring as many people as I can and to make the case again on why this needs to be approved. We do have a telecommunication service, officer. I'm not sure the exact title off the top of my head, but we do have someone who's basically in charge of the telecommunications in Pasadena. Mm-hmm. They're in charge of, getting the internet at the libraries and places like that. Right. On the website, they do say that, we've not looked into or see the need to expand to residents at this time. And that's likely because this was before net neutrality got repealed, mm-hmm. first of all. And second of all, I'm sure they have some contracts with some of the telecom companies that are already in the area, your Spectrum, your AT&T. I'm sure that all exists. As far as the details of that, I'm not sure of that yet. But what other communities have been doing to get around that red tape is they've been saying, look, when all this was agreed upon, we had net neutrality protections. Now we don't have net neutrality protections. So either we get net neutrality policy, or we have the right to build our own infrastructure, and we have the right to have municipal internet. And if you can't compete with it, you're going to have to get out of town. You're going to have to go somewhere else. So communities have been getting around that, and rightfully so. Mm-hmm. That's kind of just a basic premise of law. If you make an agreement and the terms are no longer fit the agreement, then the agreement is usually void. Right. It's kind of a basic notion that usually upholds in law. So, whatever red tape may or may not exist, I don't know how much there is or isn't, but whatever may or may not exist, we do have some paths forward. So, mm-hmm. That would be my next step, seeing what happens when it's on the agenda. Right. In the meantime, I've put the pressure on in other ways And there's freepress.net did a petition for mayors around the country to sign to extend their commitment to net neutrality and to promise net neutrality policy in their community.
That's the Open Internet Pledge?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
So I emailed our mayor here in Pasadena, Mayor Tornick, and I'll be fair. To his credit, he did reply to me, and it wasn't a form letter. It wasn't a generic like "thanks for writing and your interest" and derp derp. It was an actual response from him, but it was not the answer I was hoping to hear. He basically kind of said, "Oh, I need to talk to my staff." And what he said, I don't make a habit of stuff like this, which I don't know what that meant. I don't know if he meant I don't make a habit of doing stuff that benefits the people that live in my community. I don't know if he meant I don't make a habit of standing for anything. I don't make a habit of knowing about policy. Yeah, I mean, I was like, I'm not sure what you're not making a habit of, but I'm pretty sure what I asked you to do is your job. So you should be in the habit of making policy decisions, preferably making policy decisions that benefit your constituents. You should be in the habit of doing all those things. And if you're not, you might be in the wrong job. You might like maybe you should be doing something else. You should play the violin. I don't know. Do something else. I don't know if he plays. I don't know what he does. I don't know what his hobbies are. But he's not supposed to be a mayor if he's not in the habit of doing stuff mayors are supposed to do, i.e. make a decision that's designated for mayors. It's got mayors in the title.
Yeah, because lots of mayors
says it right there.
Lots of mayors have signed it, right?
Yeah. There's been over a
nice
dozen.
hefty list. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And mayors and usually they're in larger places. So it's like, look, you got the opportunity. New York signed on. San Francisco, Kansas City. Be somebody in Southern California. Loan your signature to it. Be a leader. And I told him as much. I've written him a couple emails, and I try to speak his language. I'm like, look, you can be a hero in this scenario. You can be a leader. If you get residential municipal internet to Pasadena and residents in the city, they know that they have fantastic internet at a reasonable price, and you're the architect of that, dude, you're going to be a popular mayor indefinitely. And if he does that, I'm willing. Hey, good for you, buddy. Ride that wave. I don't care. You get municipal internet, have at it. I don't think we agree on a lot of things politically. I think he's pretty center to center right.
Yeah.
But as far as being a mayor, I mean, whatever. You're going to bring municipal internet. That's fine. He's against rent control. So he's already got a lot of things about him I don't like. But I'm totally willing to work with you on this one because that's how important
when is he up for re-election?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I'm not sure, but
right.
but I can tell you this much: if he continues to not be responsive on this, he will have a hefty opponent. I can promise you that. It's not going to be me, but he will have a hefty opponent. He will have a hefty opponent.
Well, good, and we will be behind that opponent. Joseph, do we have questions for Ron from our studio audience?
Yes, we do, but I do have one question for Ron. Does the mayor have any reason for not standing up for net neutrality? Like he's taking money from the telecom industry or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if he is or not. Honestly, though, I think he's not super
he's
in
old.
tune to be. he is an older gentleman. I don't, I can't attest to this because when I was doing my thing, I was just kind of looking forward. I wasn't looking at him, and I was kind of looking at my notes, But according to other people that were there, he just looked incredibly confused while I was talking, like he didn't know what net neutrality was. So he may have just had he might just really not know what's going on. So he sees this kind of piece of civic engagement to sign from somebody who he at least knows is a pretty left-leaning person. He's just sort of like, I don't know what this is all about, but I'm not going to commit to something here. I have a feeling that's probably all it was, but we'll see. Time will tell. Yeah. I mean, he's going to be hearing from me more. And, I'm approaching it very, very diplomatically. I appreciate the fact that he at least responded to me. Yeah. And, I'm not gonna give up easy. And even though most of the stuff I know about him, as far as his personal politics, I'm not the biggest fan. Mainly the rent control thing. I mean, that's something he could do that he's refused to. But this is too big of an issue. So I'm willing to work with the powers that be, but they're going to be seeing a lot of me.
Mhm.
So.
A question that came in is, I don't know if you necessarily can answer this one, but what is the difference between FCC net control versus FTC control?
FCC net control versus FTC net control. I'm not familiar with what the FTC net control would entail or how they would be involved with this. What I can speak to is what FCC Title II designation is. Title II designation does not give the FCC control of the internet. It doesn't mean the government gets to dictate what you see or don't see on the internet. What Title II designation does is it treats the internet like a public utility, like a telephone service or like running water. That's what it does. So it prohibits other corporate interests from taking over the internet, like we're on the brink of now.
Mhm.
So that's what Title II designation does. And as far as any other type of designation for the internet, I can't think of a better one policy-wise. I'm not familiar with how the FTC specifically would fit into that equation with the internet being a factor. I mean, something like that has generally fallen under the FCC umbrella.
Mhm.
But, I can tell you that Title II is definitely the clearest glass. And the people that try to make it out like, that means the government controls the internet. No, that's not what Title II means.
Okay, another question that came in is, would the cities and towns have their own servers? How can very small towns do this? For a small state, should it be state internet instead of each town? So it's basically a specific question about municipal internet.
Oh, I'm sure there's definitely different ways that the infrastructure could be orchestrated. And I'm sure there's certain towns where that type of infrastructure just in the municipal itself may or may not be possible. Maybe it would have to be a citywide thing. But I mean, Sandy, Oregon pulled it off. They're not a very big place. Chattanooga, Tennessee is not some, leading tech hub compared to other places in the country. The infrastructure is already there in most places. Most places you can get decent internet. You're just getting it from an ISP or a private company. In this case, you would get it from your city. So the infrastructure is already there. It's just a matter of taking it back and orchestrating the type of service that you have and who's giving it to you. So, there's certainly details that would be worked out infrastructure-wise. I know a community like Pasadena can certainly do it. A community like Santa Monica can certainly do it. A community like, Fort Collins, Colorado can do it. As far as which ones couldn't, I'm not sure. As far as a statewide thing, I think a statewide infrastructure would definitely be great, but it's a lot easier to go to a city council meeting and start right in your own community than it would at a state level. I mean, that's something I can do as an individual any given Monday. I can show up and I can say, hey, I'm here for net neutrality. I showed up once. They agreed to put it on an initiative. That's the best response I could have asked for. So now I just have to stay persistent without, being too much of a pest about it. It's straddling that line of making sure they know I'm not going to go anywhere and that I'm going to follow up on this. Mm-hmm. So, pretty much once a month I'll check in. That they gave me a time frame. As that time frame got closer, I checked in again. I said, hey, we're getting close to the time frame. Any updates for me? Mm-hmm. And they've been responsive. And I don't know. People have contacted me saying that they were going to go to their community, their town hall. They asked for my transcript of what I said at mine, that video you just played. Everybody that's asked me, I've sent them that transcript so they can use it if they want. They can even say howdy, howdy in the end if they want to. I'd be flattered. They can feel free. And no one's followed up with me with any results yet, but I'm hoping that does happen. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, what will happen when it does get on the agenda? What's the best possible outcome of that next step?
Well, the best possible outcome is that it gets approved, or mm-hmm. that it would be a measure that residents could vote on, which, it could go, I guess potentially it could go either way, mm-hmm. depending on how they would unroll it.
I mean, could
If
it get approved outright? I mean, right then, yes, we will have it. Or it seems to me that having some sort of a ballot measure is probably the next logical step.
A ballot measure is the most likely, but I mean, if it's one of those scenarios where they're just straight up offering a service, where if they're just like, yeah, we can extend this to residents, the infrastructure is already there, and residents have the choice to either use it or not use it, and if they don't use it, I guess it's not going to be around very long. That doesn't seem to be completely out of the realm of possibility. But yeah, it would more than likely be a ballot measure. So most likely scenario, it becomes a ballot measure, which then our next task is getting the word out to anybody and everybody and making sure they vote the right way on this thing.
Right.
And I think that would be a fun battle to have. I mean, members of the local press have expressed interest in what we're doing. I had somebody from the Pasadena paper approach me. I mean, the Jimmy Dore Show has been behind it. We've been talking about it. We've been updating people. So, I'm happy to, try to use that platform as much as I can, as much as Jimmy will let me, and try to do as much as we can. So yeah, hopefully ballot measure would be next. And, I would do everything I could from using the shows that I'm on to, collecting signatures to, passing out flyers, whatever it takes. So yeah, first we got to get it on the agenda meeting and then see what that agenda meeting unfolds. If they shoot it down right away, if they say, well, it's not possible because of blah, 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 then the question becomes, well, why isn't it possible? Why? What's not possible about it? What's holding us up? And then wait and see what they say. It could be contracts with Spectrum or AT&T. It could be, potentially an infrastructure thing, which I don't think, I'm not a tech expert when it comes to internet infrastructure, but I find it incredibly hard to believe a community like Pasadena wouldn't have the resources necessary to get this done. It's just beyond hard to believe. I mean, we have some of the top NASA research happens here. The Big Bang Theory was made here. I mean, we, and the college that they went to the college. So I find it hard to believe. So I wouldn't buy that if they gave me that explanation. So yeah, we'll see what happens after the agenda meeting. But those are the most likely scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Another question we have is, if we can set up municipal internet, do you think it's possible to establish a municipal energy infrastructure utilizing solar and wind technology? Why stop at internet?
Totally. Let's not stop at internet, but let's do one thing at a time. I mean, I'm all about, I'm 100% behind a Green New Deal. I think that's great. But, I kind of gotta take on this battle first, because if we lose the free and open internet as we know it, I, for one, am out of a job. And I think there's a lot at stake for a lot of people. And there's a lot at stake for our news and information in this country. We're going to be in a lot of trouble if pretty much 3 corporations dictate everything we see and hear, to the point where we have nothing to fight back with. Mm-hmm. So I'm focusing on this right now just because, one step at a time. But totally, I'd love the idea of communities really building their own green energy infrastructure, because the powers that be sure as hell aren't interested.
And then the last question is, can you give us a good source to go to for information on how municipal internet could be set up? If info to give the town government?
Yeah. First of all, as far as policy goes, a good policy resource is freepress.net. There's also a website, muninetworks.org. They give details on all the municipal resources that are out there. And basically, they have a map of the United States. And you can just kind of click wherever your home is. You can just kind of click. You can see all the different networks that are being built, how they're being constructed. And the one really uplifting thing is there's more of them than we realize. I clicked Southern California for the area, and I saw Santa Monica is already working on something. This stuff's already going on, and it's already happening. And it's just a matter of utilizing those resources, making sure we're taking control of the situation, and making sure residents know what's going on and what's at stake here, and why they need to, why they want to be sending a check to their municipal each month instead of to Comcast each month. There's a number of reasons for it, and we really need to make that shift. And it's definitely going to take some time, but it's an attainable feat.
We will put those links to answer your question, Melissa. Yes, we will put these links in the description of the video so that as everyone who watches this for years on end can find them. Ron, thank you so much. This was super useful. It clarified a lot of things for me. It certainly was an eye-opening idea that we can just get out there and get in their council and get it on the agenda and even just have it approved. So thank you so much for spending your time. Thank you for doing this.
And I'll just say one more thing, if you don't mind. Anybody that, if you are interested in going to a city council meeting and, you kind of want to know what I said. I mean, some people have emailed me before. They're like, can we get your transcript? If you go to my website, it's just ronplacone.com. You email me there. I'll totally send you that transcript if you don't want to have to watch the video and type it out, or you're not sure if you want some suggestions on what to say. I'd be more than happy to send you what I did, and I'd be more than happy to keep anyone who's interested updated on my progress. I mean, I have been on both the Jimmy Dore Show and on Get Your News On with Ron. I'm going to continue to do that. But yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to do anything that I've done in their community and thinks that I'd be able to help in any way, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And everything I've done, any mistakes that I've made or will make, I'll share it all with you.
Okay. And when we have our next event and we've got an update, will you come back and fill us in?
Of course. Yeah. Hopefully,
Fabulous.
hopefully sooner than later, we're going to have a victory story. So
Fabulous. Well, I know you're a busy guy, and we were so excited to have you on tonight. So thank you for being here, and we'll look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. You're
It's a lot of fun.
welcome. Okay, everyone. That was wonderful. A brief break before we go into Joseph's segment, and he's got a lot, so I'm not going to take a long time here. Just wanted to remind you, we are an independent media, and please support our programming. I know that this is something that most of you already do, but anybody else listening, go to donate at uphealmedia.org. It's a tax-deductible donation to our nice nonprofit, and we would appreciate it a lot. And if your way of contributing is more on the line of hoodies and water bottles, we also have merch. So you can go to shop.uphealmedia.org and get your shopping on. And we would appreciate every little bit. So now we are going to switch over to the news with Joseph. He has been busy all afternoon collecting all kinds of information on how the California Dems are responding to Syria and some Kamala Harris shenanigans. So Joseph, take it away, darling.
Yes, it's been a freaking outrageous week. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I was kind of hoping we wouldn't really have to focus too much on Syria, and because of that, I actually was preparing a separate segment on Dianne Feinstein and was hoping to do that. But on Friday, we got some pretty bad news, which I unfortunately wasn't that surprised about. And here we are today. So on Friday, as many of you are aware, the United States, along with the allies, France and United Kingdom, launched an illegal strike on Syria. The strikes were supposedly targeting Assad's chemical weapon facilities, although according to some recent reports, those facilities that were actually hit were actually just facilities that were making antidotes to snake venom and didn't really have anything to do with chemical weapons at all. In fact, a lot of those people who were interviewed were saying stuff like, if there was a chemical weapon facility here, we wouldn't be standing here talking. So I don't know how that chemical weapon facilities went, but this whole attack was illegal, and as in it was unconstitutional, as a lot of the California Democrats are willing to point out, and it was illegal as in it violated the UN Charter. Now, these strikes were done over the alleged chemical attacks that were allegedly done by Assad onto his own people. Why the word alleged so many times? Well, because there is no evidence or an actual investigation into whether or not these actual chemical attacks actually happened, or if Assad is actually behind them. How do I know this? Because the OPCW, the Organization of Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, just arrived in Syria yesterday. the day after US, France, and the UK decided to start bombing Syria and their supposed chemical weapon facilities. Now, on top of that conflict, there's also conflicting reports that suggest that Russia may or may not have been informed about the attacks before they happen. And depending on what the reality is, the ramifications of this whole entire thing can be disastrous. And in the midst of all of this, we have progressives and right-wingers, including the likes of Tommy Lauren, Tucker Carlson, coming out and actually being anti-war. And then we also have Hillbots who are blaming Susan Sarandon, because we have to blame Susan Sarandon for everything. Now, no evidence, no justification, no actual investigation, but who cares? Because that doesn't matter. Now, how did the California Democrats in this whole realm spectrum of people saying we don't want this respond to these attacks? Well, let's start with a few of the worst responses, and then we'll get to some of the better ones. Now, the graphic I decided to use here was Nancy Pelosi in the beginning, because I thought her response was going to be the worst. But then I did some investigating and some digging and found an even worse tweet that was responding to the Syria strike from Mark Desaulniers, which I probably butchered his name, but I don't really care about getting his name right now. Because his response to this Syria attack, which, by the way, illegal and unconstitutional, was the military situation in Syria is incredibly complex, but Assad's heinous use of chemical agents on Syrians' civilian population must be met with a strong response. I'm grateful we're partnering with our French and British allies as we carry out these attacks. So he doesn't even care about whether or not these attacks are unconstitutional. He's bluntly telling you he supports it, which is worse than the actual Democrats, as I'm about to show you, as their response, because their response at least did have some pushback, as we will see from Nancy Pelosi's statement here. Nancy Pelosi said, "This latest chemical weapon attack against the Syrian people was a brutally inhumane crime that demands a strong, smart, and calculated response. One night of airstrikes is not a substitute for a clear, comprehensive Syria strategy. The president must come to Congress and secure an authorization for use of military force by proposing a comprehensive strategy with clear objectives that keep our military safe, collateral damage to innocent lives," all of which suggests that Nancy Pelosi's main objection here is procedural. How dare you go through with these attacks without getting our approval first? No questioning of the narrative, no questioning and saying, hey, where's the evidence here? We're committing some crimes, at least from the UN Charter standpoint. We might as well justify it with some actual evidence. None of that. No. Oh, it's obvious we have to do something about this. It's obvious you need comprehensive strategy, which probably means going further into Syria. Yeah, we totally need this, but you have to get my approval first. That's her problem. Yeah, that's the resistance. But you know what? Maybe I'm being unfair to the resistance. Maybe there are other superstars in the resistance right now who are perhaps being a little bit more questioning of the whole media narrative. Let's go to Adam Schiff. You know, Mr. It is I, Adam Schiff. I protect you from the Russians. Bashar al-Assad, from Adam Schiff here, Bashar al-Assad's chemical weapons attack against his own people merited a strong international response. These attacks must not be tolerated. However morally justified, the strikes risk serious escalation. Absent congressional authorization, they are also on thin legal ground. So I'm glad that he mentioned escalation, I guess. But once again, not even questioning the whole premise on which we're going through the attack with. And on top of that, he's just like, well, it's on thin legal ground right now because you didn't get my permission first. Adam Schiff. Now let's go on to Eric Swalwell, the other Mr. It is I, Eric Swalwell. I will protect you from the Russians. Well, what did he say? Well, he actually had a 3-step strategy. He was like, what's the mission? You did the same strike last year. It failed. Syria still gasses its own people. Unproven, by the way. How about 1, go to Congress. 2, build Mid-East coalition. 3, never again get us so close to Russia that it takes an ear plus to stand up to them. Troops deserve a plan, not impulse. They can't stop themselves. They're like, oh, this is another great opportunity on which I can go after Trump on Russia. How dare you get so close to Putin that it takes you this long to get into Syria? Also, you need our permission first. Now I'll go on to Ted Lieu here. I'll summarize Ted Lieu's position. He's like, oh, you got no AUMF. Oh, you got no actual permission from us. Unconstitutional. And in fact, Ted Lieu has actually been pretty excited about this, so much so that, as you can see right here, it says unconstitutional in huge capitalized letters. That was it. He was tweeting this last fucking night. And as you can see, John, if you can bring the next slide up on full screen, these kinds of response came up all the time from these California Democrats, all of them saying the attacks happened, all of them not questioning the premise, not asking for actual evidence or a proper investigation. No. They were like, yeah, we're for this. We agree. We think it's outrageous what Assad is doing. So let's attack him. But before you do, get our permission.
It's like they were each had to come up with their own description of the chemical attacks. Heinous, vile, criminal.
Exactly. And all of them are so careful. They're like, we don't want to seem like as if we're questioning this. No. So we're gonna start off by saying, oh, it's terrible. We feel so bad. We got to do something. Now, Senator Dianne Feinstein, let's go through the senators just to be thorough here. Senator Dianne Feinstein responded by saying, I'm continuing to monitor Syria in the aftermath of yesterday's missile strikes. Assad must not be allowed to gas his citizens, but Congress also must be consulted regarding use of force. My thoughts are with our servicemen and women in harm's way. Are your thoughts with them, Dianne Feinstein? Are your thoughts actually with them? Because you seem to be very on board with this attack. Okay, now let's go on to Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, she's running for 2020, I hear. Maybe she'll be a sane voice of reason. No. After saying that she strongly supports the men and women in arms, and after saying Assad needs to be held accountable for his unconscionable use of chemical weapons, she said the president needs to lay out a comprehensive strategy, there it is again, in Syria as in consultation with Congress, and he needs to do it now. All of them. And some of them, by the way, didn't even release a statement. Some of them just retweeted Nancy Pelosi. I'm like, that's enough. All of them, we need a strategy. How dare you do this without presenting a strategy to us first? You need our permission to do this. Which, by the way, I'm not saying that this whole point about it being unconstitutional, you need to get congressional approval first, is a bullshit point. No. It is a very valid point. It's just that shouldn't be the main thing you're focusing so hard on. Now, who actually did a semi-good job of actually responding to it? Well, it's Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna, generally a progressive guy. I generally like him on issues. He has a semi-good record as of now, and he has a pretty good history. And when it comes to voting on wars, I think he would actually vote the right way. But he said, and his tweets suggest that he's focused on the issues. Like, for example, here he talks a little bit about how military intervention in Syria will lead to more needlessly lost lives. That's a very good point. I agree with that. Let's go to his other tweet. His other tweet was about how we could be using this money that we currently have and that we're currently using in Syria and actually spend it on things like infrastructure and housing and healthcare and education, which is a very valid point. And I agree with that. But even Ro Khanna cannot fight off this belief that we cannot question the premise on which we went through the attack with. Because he tweeted out, to my disappointment, there is no doubt that Assad is a brutal dictator who should be held accountable for his war crimes through international law. The strikes launched last night won't stop him from gassing his own people. No mission has been accomplished. Once again, no evidence, no investigation whatsoever. Ro Khanna, I like you a lot, and when it comes down to it, I think he may actually vote the right way based on his history. So I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here. And I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt partially because he did actually focus on other issues like refugees and the money we could be saving. Those are legitimate issues that Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff and all the others failed to actually talk about. But even this guy, even one of the most progressive guys, failed to question the narrative. So did any California Democrat actually go and question the narrative? Surprisingly enough, yes. And his name was Brad Sherman. Who knew that there would ever come a day where on this show I would say, Representative Brad Sherman, he's the same voice of reason. Because he actually said, quote, it was good that in 2014 we forced al-Assad to turn over 2.8 million pounds of highly toxic chemical weapons. We need to show that those who violate the chemical weapons conventions will be punished. That said, the administration should have provided Congress with a classified briefing to show us how strong his proof is that al-Assad was behind the recent chemical attack. Now, I'm not saying that he goes far enough. In my opinion, if there is evidence of such a thing, it should be presented to the public. But at least Representative Brad Sherman here is actually willing to say, you know what, I want to see the evidence behind this. Let's get the evidence. Let's make sure Congress at least gets to see the evidence before jumping on board the let's bomb Syria truck. Representative Brad Sherman. So who actually gave a decent response to the Democratic Party? Well, it was Tulsi Gabbard, which is really unsurprising because when it comes to war issues, she generally tends to be pretty okay. She's the person who's behind the Stop Arming Terrorists Act. Now, I'm going to read the whole statement simply because it's the best statement I've been able to find from the Democratic Party. Quote, the people of Syria desperately want to live in peace and do not want their country to be taken over by genocidal terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS. If we are truly concerned about the suffering of the Syrian people and bringing about stability so refugees can return home and begin to rebuild their lives, then we should work for peace. End our policy of interventionist regime change wars and stop trying to be the policeman of the world.
Yes.
That, my friends, is the resistance's proper response. But of course, that doesn't happen because we don't have an anti-war party. Excuse me. That's wrong. We do have the Green Party. I apologize for that. But we don't have an anti-war party that is currently in power right now. The Democrats and the Republicans, at the end of the day, they might not necessarily jump on board Trump's attacks, and they might try to pretend half resist, basically. Say, oh, procedure-wise, this was wrong, but I agree with your attacks because it was good. Let's take down Assad. Yeah. Democrats, man. And it's fucking insane that when Tulsi Gabbard actually is a sane voice on this, actually asking questions, actually saying, you know what, even if al-Assad is doing this, which is terrible, bombing them isn't going to help because it's going to help Al-Qaeda and ISIS and all these extremist groups who can fill the void if Assad is toppled instead. It sucks and it's fucking awful that these people get smeared for being reasonable, for being anti-war, for saying, let's give peace a try. And it's not just America. It's also France and the UK and all the others who came out in support of it afterwards, like Canada and Germany. Now, to Canada and Germany's credit, they were sane enough not to take part in the attack. But you look at the UK right now. One of the most outspoken politicians who has been incredibly right on this is Jeremy Corbyn of the UK's Labour Party. He has been incredibly outspoken, saying, we want evidence. We think this should go past the Member of Parliaments first. But you know what happens when you're actually a sane voice when it comes to war? Even in the UK, even in a country like that, the BBC did an interview with Jeremy Corbyn yesterday. And the entire time the interview was like, would you ever use missiles in Syria? And Jeremy Corbyn was being reasonable, saying, you know what, I want to try I want to go through a process. We want to make sure we get peace to try. I want to try all the things that we can. And if using missiles is something that we have to do to get the end result of peace, then I'll do it. And the guy, the BBC reporter, by the way, this isn't CNN or MSNBC. The BBC reporter was like, admit it. As if you were prime minister right now, you wouldn't bomb Syria in any situation. This is the state of all of these countries right now. We all just want to bomb the fuck out of them. Now, there's still hope, because there are candidates currently running right now. And I wish I could go through all the progressive candidates who came out against this, but I can't. So we're just going to go through two. Now, first, Rosa Calderon who's actually running in California's 4th district, I believe, was actually tweeting a little bit about this. And I decided to ask her a question. I was like, if you were in Congress right now, and if Trump had decided to put this past Congress before going through with the attack, would you have voted for it? Would you have voted against it? And she responded, absolutely. To help nations who are in political turmoil, the answer is diplomatic political strategy to bring peace, not U.S. military intervention. I came to the, it says the U.S., but I think she meant, I came to the U.S. as a political child refugee. Those who suffer the most are civilians caught in the crossfire. # Syria crisis. She gets it. You know who else gets it? Kenneth Mejia, who I talked about last week. At times like this, we need Congress members who will lead, not stay quiet. What is happening in # Syria happened because of colonial, imperialist, and capitalist tendencies to provoke a sovereign nation and take resources from them and us. Hundreds of millions of dollars gone. Lives at risk. These people get it. They are not only objecting to these attacks because of procedure, but they're objecting it from the perspective of saying, you know what, this doesn't get what we want, which is peace. This isn't gonna help. We don't have a good track record on actually intervening in anything. And the thing that you might say, oh, he's getting worked up again. No, yeah, I'm getting fucking worked up again. Because you know what? I'm 19 years old. I'm an American fucking citizen. I love this country to death, mind you. But still, it is fucking outrageous that in my 19 years of being alive, almost 20, I don't have any actual living memory of an America that hasn't been at war. I was 5 years old when the Iraq War began, and since then we've just been escalating and escalating, and now we're in 8 or 9 different wars, maybe 10, depending on how you decide to count it. Out fucking rageous. Okay. Now going on from a lighthearted story about how California Democrats have no spine and then the Democratic Party is just shameful as fuck, let's talk about Senator Kamala Harris. Lovely Senator Kamala Harris. Well, recently Kamala Harris was holding a town hall, and she was holding a town hall. People were asking her questions, and one of the audience members one of her audience members decided to ask her the question about money and politics. Do we have the video? Yes, we do have the video loaded up. Let's give it a play, John.
I'm going to ask you something extremely specific, okay, because I'm hoping for a very specific answer.
Okay.
Okay, it has to do with the first question about money and politics, but it's directed at you personally, and my question is this. If a corporation or a corporate lobbyist wants to give you money for a campaign, will you tell them thanks but no thanks?
Well, it depends. It depends. I mean,
Wrong answer.
Well, that's not the answer you want to hear. It doesn't make it wrong. So.
That was a bye Felicia there.
But thank you for asking, and I appreciate the reason that you're asking it. I do appreciate that, because and that's why we have rules that require that any donation that anyone receives needs to be disclosed, so that you can do an assessment and the voters can do an assessment and look at where the contributions come from and make your decisions about whether those contributions have influenced the way that people act and the way that people vote. And so I'm an open book there. Feel free to look at it and then draw your own conclusions about what has motivated me and what hasn't.
Okay.
Why are you guys clapping? That's honestly my first response when I saw that clip. I was like, why are these people clapping? Yeah, Kamala Harris, she's gonna keep on accepting those bribes. Yeah. What? And I absolutely despise how smug she is. She's like, oh, well, that depends. And when the guy rightly says wrong, she's like, no. It might be wrong to you. It might not be what you want to hear, but it's not necessarily wrong. And seriously, the host that you can hear in the background, that's a bye Felicia moment. Really? A bye Felicia moment is probably when you say, I'm not gonna take fucking corporate money. I'm gonna actually become a corporate PAC-free candidate. Like all of her other 2020 friends are doing. Kristen Gillibrand, Cory Booker. Out fucking rageous. And you might be saying right now, well, maybe Kamala Harris has a point. After all, she does have to disclose who her donors are. Maybe she's corruption-free. Well, let's face it, Kamala Harris doesn't have a good record on this. Because back when she was Attorney General, she had the perfect opportunity to take on Steve Mnuchin and actually prosecute him for the crimes he was committing at One West Bank. Did she? Of course not. She failed. And do you know what happened after that? When she ran for the Senate, Steve Mnuchin actually donated money to her. The only Democrat Steve Mnuchin gave money to just so happens to be the only person, well, perhaps not the only person, but the person that Kamala Harris, the banker that Kamala Harris decided to let go despite being advised and recommended to actually charge. And on top of that, it's important to note that last year, Kamala Harris actually had a pretty good meeting at the Hamptons. Now, what happened at the Hamptons? Well, at the Hamptons, Kamala Harris had a meeting with the oligarchs behind the Democratic Party. The people who backed Hillary Clinton was throwing a lot of money into the Democratic Party, those people. The people who don't represent us, no, they aren't interested in us. The people who represent their own selfish, greedy needs. You know, the fucking millionaires and billionaires who just want to keep on making more money for some fucking reason. And all of them came out of that meeting very, very, very proud and happy. Many of them saying, I think she would make a good presidential candidate. Harris 2020. And I think this might be a sign of what is to come, to be entirely honest with you. The fact that she is so smug about it, the fact that she doesn't feel even the need to go out there and actually, reject corporate PAC money, I think it suggests that she's pretty confident that she's got their backing. And you know what that tells me? She sold out. She sold us already fucking out. And I have a prediction. Surprise, surprise. I think she's going to be the next senator to join the no PAC money movement. You might say, wait, what? But she just said that she was perfectly okay with corporate PAC money. No. She's going to make some corporate. She's going to get the corporate PAC money. She's going to get a bit of an arsenal going on. Get all that money in while she can. And then when the time is right, when the price moment comes, she's going to say, oh, I changed my position. I changed my mind. You better tell my staff, no PAC money movement, here I come. Just as 2020 comes around. And of course, she's going to run like that. And people are going to pretend, oh, she's not corrupt. She's not taking any PAC money. Well, look at her record. Look at what she's done in the past. Look at what the Hamptons are saying. Look at what the people at the Hamptons are saying. Look at what the oligarchs are saying about her. Look at them approving of her. They're going to try to screw Bernie again with this person. I swear, I promise you, they are. It's something to look out for. But here's what they don't know. Here's what the Democratic establishment and the oligarchs don't know. They don't know that we're paying attention now. That people like me will be out here screaming about this. I'm going to save that clip. And I'm going to play it each time I talk about Kamala Harris. I'm going to be like, remember this? Remember this back in 2018, what she thought about corporate PAC money? Oh, look at her change her mind now. Because people like me are going to point it out, and people like you are going to remember. Our audience is going to remember. And other progressives are going to see this video because I've been tweeting it around. And it's gotten pretty good retweets. And people are going to say, what the fuck? No, Kamala Harris, no more. No mas, as my ex-girlfriend used to say. And on that note, that was your news for the week. Back to you, Laura, live and good.
That was awesome. I can't believe how much you can pack into 1.5 hour.
I try my best.
That is our show. We've actually got a special treat song closing for you tonight, but I wanted to give a quick shout out. I'm not sure what our show is next week, so I'm not even going to go there. But I do want to give a shout out to We the People this week, because we have two California progressive candidates that are going to be on the show tomorrow night. Rosa Calderon,
yes,
which we just mentioned her, and Ryan Kojasta. Did I say it right?
I think you said it right.
Okay. So, Rosa from California District 2, Kojaste. We were practicing it before the show, too. I need to hear him say it. Anyway, so Ryan is the latest progressive for California District 12. We had Shahid Buttar and, of course, Stephen Jaffe. They are all running against Nancy Pelosi. So those are two candidates that are going to be on We the People this week, Monday and Wednesday. And, okay, so for our closing song, we have none other than an original song by Ron Placone. This is a song of his in the punk vein called "Been 27 Since 33," and this is an original song. This is maybe the first time it's ever been played in public. And
he plays it on his live stream sometimes.
Oh, does he?
Okay. But this is a song that's going to be in his upcoming album. So.
Oh, yay!
Yeah.
Okay. So, Joe, thank you. John, behind the scenes, thank you. Everyone in chat, thank you. You're all awesome. Thank you for coming back and seeing us every Sunday night. And let's go out with Been 27 Since 33.
I've been 27 since 33. What the hell does society want from me? I've been 27 since 33. Age is just a myth to me. I've been 27 since 33. You can say I'm an old soul. I've been 27 since 33, and I still need rock and roll. Robbie went down to see the devil, said you wanna go down too. I said, Robbie, that seems a little bit heavy for me, but you do you. 3 drinks later, I was there by his side. He said, hey, Ron, you wanna go for a ride? I said, look, Robbie, I just wanna make it through. 27 since 33. I've seen it all, but not all seen me. I've been 27 since 33. Someday I'll get that vasectomy. I've been 27 since 33. On my brain, it takes a toll. Been 27 since 33, and I'm never growing old. Robert said, hey devil, wanna be the best that there'll ever be. The devil said, look fool, I can do that for you, but you gotta do something for me. You'll be the best there'll ever be, but at 27 you'll die. And your friend over there with the long red hair, he'll be the same age forever. He'll be the same age forever. He'll be the same age forever that he is tonight. 27 since 33. I've been 27 since 33. I've been 27 since 33. I've been 27 since 33.